Marvel Comics won't be one-upped by Marvel Studios. I do really enjoy the new X-Men themed logo though. So this is where we are. This is where we are in time, and this is where Logan is. So much neatly summed up before the title card, all with very little exposition. He's a broken down, Uberish driver at the end of his rope. Was that metal shattering against his adamantium spine? As you can imagine, brutal winds come up pretty frequently, and the beginning to this film sets the stage. So brutal. I will say I'm glad that this first scene separates itself from the Old Man Logan comic by not giving us Logan the pacifist, so we know what to expect. Never gets old, although the extra blood definitely makes it feel worse.
As I live and breathe, the Wolverine.
One thing Mangold does surprisingly well is blend the somewhat lacking celebrity of the X-Men in previous films that is present in this film with the real world in which these characters exist. What a confusing sentence. Basically, I appreciate that they're known as heroes in this future, whether it's all exaggerated or not.
I'm a fan, by the way.
Steve Murphy may not be able to speak Spanish very well, but he's got that Western drawl down. Seriously, Boyd Holbrook embodies a sort of flippant Western villain like a champ. I really love the way this film treats us like adults, which you should be if you're watching this anyway. But there's no heavy-handed exposition where Pierce asks Logan what he's doing and he awkwardly explains. We get a few cuts of him driving people across the border and alerted to him being on a first-name basis with the border crossing guard.
Hey, Sam.
Make way, sir.
I said make way! The new Quesalupa from Taco Bell!
Patrick Stewart is always a win, and he doesn't even care.
You're the man who puts me to sleep.
We both could use some sleep.
Well, you're both gonna get some. A dark look at Xavier's powers that probably wouldn't be a story focus in a PG-13 film. The idea that his decaying mind, still empowered with telepathy, would lash out like this is seriously frightening.
Off, Logan.
Well, that's not something I ever thought I'd hear. I can't decide if this is ruining my memories or enhancing them. Let's go with altering for now.
There are no new mutants, understand? There's been a new one born in 25 years.
So it's 2029. That puts the last mutant being born around 2004, which is 1 year after the events of the original Statue of Liberty event that Xavier was talking about.
They're waiting for you at the Statue of Liberty.
So 12 to 16 years later in 2016-2020, they'd be noticing a drop-off in new mutants coming of age. Interestingly, this gives credence to Beast's statement in Days of Future Past about the time stream correcting itself. They stopped the Sentinels from destroying mutant kind, but right around the same time, mutants are dying off.
You were pursuing a career as a cage fighter.
For instance, nothing was going to keep Logan from becoming a cage fighter.
I gave you a family.
They're gone now.
Logan, what did you do?
I like that subtle misdirection for those who do know the Old Man Logan story. A super terrible image, but another painful reality of what an aging Logan might have to deal with. Wolverine version of like urinary retention. The use of light and specifically light beams in this film is stunning, especially when you switch over to the black and white version, which I highly recommend.
Making him spotted dick.
Sounds gross, and apparently it is gross. British fruitcake?
Found this in your pocket. Adamantium.
Well, there's Chekhov's bullet. This score barely belongs in a comic book movie at all. But wow, does it capture melancholy with a touch of understated tension superbly.
Bad girl!
Please.
I told you, bad girl!
Please, no, stop.
Mama Seaman's gonna have to pay for that!
Saving this lady from a painful stabbing death.
Where are you keeping the old man? That'd be smart. I'd like to meet him.
I love this fanboy persona that Boyd has adopted. He's a vicious killer trying to murder kids, but he's gonna get a few autographs along the way if he can.
America's most wanted octogenarian.
I'm a nonagenarian, actually.
Age, honesty, and a vocab lesson. You gotta love that she shows no fear knowing who and what are coming for her. Even with the reveal of who Laura is, even with this exact scene in the trailer, it's still so awesome. Especially the look on Logan's face as he realizes what her mutation is.
No. No.
And Pierce's response is totally appropriate and hilarious. Look at that Reaver's beard. Couple of beautiful beard wins amongst these mercs. Even better than Tank Legs. And Laura is like Hannah on speed and steroids. And a pure hatred for people's femoral arteries. Whoa, I guess you can torture kids if it's understood that they can heal? Brutal. Yep, she's got a foot knife. It's a foot knife, everyone. And let's talk about Daphne's physicality. Holy martial arts and gymnastic skills. Ha! Love that Logan just knows. Well, if she really is
Very much like you.
then I can ram this car into her and it'll be no big deal. Being dragged around while tangled up in barbed wire, still trying to shoot your target. That's some corporate loyalty. Fall in! Is it me or did it just get a little Mad Maxy in here? Like, in every sense of the name. Have to love this Western-style standoff after nearly dodging a train nonetheless. I can sort of buy this. An exaggerated or mutated look at being a sewer-dwelling albino.
These two.
Not okay.
Murder lessons. And a parenting win. I like that even though X-24 ends up being a clone, his body parts all laying around are a subtle reference to Albert. Avalanche! And Bolt! So maybe the events of Origins aren't exactly still canon, but you can't mention Bradley without picturing Mary.
Oh yeah, Charles, we got ourselves an X-Men fan.
This is something that could have come off as silly and ironically self-serving, but it really does work in this universe. Contrasting the dulled PG-13 realities to this F-word-filled one. I would have loved to see flashbacks to things in those movies updated to R. Not really, it would have taken away from the tone of this film, but still, it's fun to dream.
There aren't any more guns in the valley.
When you really analyze the importance of showing us this scene, it's some heavy-handed foreshadowing for what's to come. Shane was talking about guns or gunslingers, which you could equate to old mutants versus new mutants.
No self-promoting and a leotard can stop it.
So, before, he had to be talking about Cyclops, right? Cyclops wrote the X-Men comics, which is why he's always the leader even though in the movies he never really is. And then maybe he planted these actual location coordinates as a safe haven for mutants in danger. Good stuff. I love how they set the seizure up as probably about to happen and then right before the camera starts to move erratically leading up to a high-pitched whine fading in. Also how the intensity increases as Logan moves closer to the source. Yeah, he's coming for you. This is one of the most creative, obviously brutal, and just plain awesome scenes in this film. Teamwork.
And took the lives of 7 mutants, including several of the...
It's funny, everyone was talking about how the broadcast got cut off and you don't actually hear the X-Men part, and I really didn't believe it until I watched it again. I could have sworn she actually said it. Also, the embedded subtitles confirm it in case anyone is still confused. It's sort of sweet that the one time Xavier uses his power purposefully in this film, it's to control the horses to help this family.
That's your daughter?
Yeah, that's Laura, and that's my dad, Chuck.
Chuck. He is a Chuck. And another example of treating us like adults, and a sort of cliche subversion in that Logan responds in stride like most people would, not like movie characters usually do, where they telegraph their lying to the audience with a long pause and stutter.
Speaking to a man who ran a school for a lot of years, right, Charles? Really?
Amazing that in one of the most action-packed, gruesomely bloody films of the year, we're also given one of the most nostalgic, genuine, and heartwarming scenes in this series. For both these actors, this is their last crack at these characters. It's almost as if they're sincerely recounting the good times they had together as good friends do, which, come to find out, it was mostly improvised.
And then we bind the Sunseeker.
I think we all knew there was no typical happy ending for either of them going into this film, but Mangold does a good job of really setting us up for some hurt.
Look at them. Look like dinosaurs with their 20-ton bodies and tiny little brains.
Just be thankful they aren't infected with the symbiote. Alright, Rory is a win.
Logan.
I can't even with this. I'm not removing a win, even though I really want to. I know that I'm feeling exactly what Mangold wanted me to feel. Elation mixed with sorrow for Xavier's perfect night, squarely being crushed by an unceremonious death. He deserved better. But in Logan's universe, there is no better. And it's made even more heart-wrenching and hammered even harder home when you remember Xavier said this.
You remember who I am now?
I always know who you are. It's just sometimes I don't recognize you.
And then it's just a no-holds-barred jaw-on-the-floor sequence. From the cavalier killing of the Munson family, reminiscent of the Hulk gang getting bored, leading up to Logan's first confrontation with his feral, more powerful, soulless younger self where he totally freezes. Then, of course, he freezes. X-24 represents everything Logan has been hiding from his whole life. His Weapon X past that haunts him. X-24 is the literal and actual embodiment of that beast.
Who the is that?
Why, don't you know? It's the Hulk gang.
Beware the light.
Self-sacrifice wrapped up in a callback burn.
Beware the light.
I thought Terminator vs. Terminator was awesome and brutal. Arnie's ain't got nothing on Jackman's. Saving your new... well, yeah, I'll just die here then. This score is so freaking dark. Yeah, that's an appropriate reaction. Pretty close to mine. Actually, this is a better representation. And of course he pulls away from her. His worst fears were just again confirmed. Death follows him everywhere he goes. How could he possibly open himself up to Laura?
Does not exist. No, it's a fantasy.
Fun fact, if we're allowed to have fun facts in this film. Yeah, fun fact. When Daphne originally read for this part, she did it the way Mangold wanted, and then she asked if she could improvise a bit. Needless to say, the version that made it into the film is much closer to her improvised audition with Hugh Jackman cursing at the top of his lungs at her. And she punched him right in the face. I like that for the most part, there isn't a whole lot of advanced tech, even though we're in the future. Reavers have robotic arms, sure, but even their enhancements are downplayed. Other than a few interactive screens and fancy billboards, it's pretty post-apocalyptic. Another scene of Logan being raised up, but this time towards the light instead of towards the pain. Again, the awe in their faces upon meeting their hero for the first time.
No, I keep it to, Actually, I was thinking of shooting myself with it.
Some honesty, that's really a first step in Logan accepting Laura as an equal and not just a kid that culminates in the end when he relies on her for his plan. Wolverine!
Not funny. That is not funny.
Your asylum approved.
That's where we will be safe.
Not that it really matters, but we're all leaning towards Alpha Flight, right? The Canadian superheroes? Why else would Rice say,
We need to reach them before they get to the border.
not like they'd respect national boundaries, right? Talk about a cold forearm. Didn't know I needed to be afraid of pine needles. Thanks, movies. Yeah. Oh man, do I love this forest slaughter. Logan's last beast run where he's the baddest, badass good guy. The look on Laura's face when she realizes he really is coming to rescue her, and the mere fact that Logan has switched back into hero mode to protect his daughter.
Get behind me.
Maybe it's not the most edifying father-daughter team-up, but come on, father-daughter teamwork.
To distribute gene therapy discreetly through everything from sweet drinks to breakfast serums, and it worked. Random mutancy went the way of polio.
So this film is a character study drama at its core. But this news about the corn syrup comes as something of a revelation. What impresses me is the number of times cane wood and corn syrup and the energy drinks come up and how they've been dropping hints throughout the movie at the true cause of the mutant extinction.
Dangerous times, James, you can't.
Oh, I love that. As if the writers and movie of Logan's life itself was trying to go down a typical monologuing moment and Logan said, nah. To quote Valentine, this ain't that kind of movie. And the deeper subtext of how Laura would know the signal,
Laura, you'll know when.
is even more fun. Other than, yeah, killing that dude. Earlier, Logan says,
I don't like guns.
we know that to be true of him as a character, so Laura, who also knows him as a character, would understand. And this is also the culmination of his trust in her as he finally sees her as an equal. I mean, you had it coming, bro.
Go, go, go!
I love that Logan knows. Yeah, that wouldn't have stopped me in my prime.
This is what it feels like.
And again, so many meanings, so many feelings. Earlier, Charles told Logan,
You should take a moment and feel it. People who love each other. Safe place.
to be loved, to have a family. And for one brief moment he did. He's also finally getting his wish to die after a long, long life of torment and loss and not being able to die. And for the first time, someone he cares about, someone who has pushed their way into his heart, didn't die. And bringing it full circle back to the Wolverine, Yukio's prophecy came true after all, since he is holding his heart in his hand. Because what is the one thing that Logan is truly afraid of? What is the one thing that always ends up in heartache and pain for him? Love. Opening himself up to his daughter was a bigger antagonist than any giant robot or swarm of robots or guy in a robot suit. A beautiful, meaningful, and sacrificial death if there ever was one.
There are no more guns in the valley.
With the death of Logan and Charles, as far as Laura is concerned, there are no more old or original mutants left. And recounting the quote from Shane is her way of honoring them. Got your X in there. And for this universe, for the things that Logan believed in, Charles, the X-Men, it really is appropriate. Talk about a tone shift from last week's Spider-Man. If there were two opposite ends of the spectrum, I think these are it. Logan is a Western meets road film meets comic book movie meets family drama. Not genres you'd think you could mix and match, but by golly, Mangold did it. Well, to be fair, Jackman, Stewart, Holbrook, and Daphne Keane helped quite a bit. But I have to be honest, I still have mixed feelings about this movie. I woke up the morning after feeling just down. like waking up the morning after a pet had run away, or found out a friend was upset with you, or, well, after watching The Red Wedding. I think the best way for me to enjoy this movie, which I do, would be to sort of quarantine it from the X-Men films in my mind, and much like Old Man Logan, allow it to exist in an alternate universe. I can say I didn't know I was signing up to see Professor X dealing with dementia and the guilt of murdering a bunch of X-Men to then be murdered by who he thought was the last person he had in the world. I've just felt off, and still do after watching it again. The initial sting is gone, but the impact this film has on my mind is a testament to itself, and probably more importantly Jackman and Stewart's legacies in this series. And I don't need my movie-going experience to always be happy, chipper, kittens, and bunnies escapism. But it's not too often that two characters you've loved for almost 2 decades die in one film, with no hope for a future. At least with Next Gen's All Good Things, we were left with some hope. So, in removing this from the X-Men franchise in my brain, or applying the alternate reality framework like the comic, I'm able to appreciate the beauty of this film. And the beauty of Logan's death. Logan mentioned that they both could use some sleep. And that's the truth. They've been through enough. While Xavier's unceremonious death leaves me wanting a little, there wasn't much happiness left for him in his state. And Logan's death capped off a desperate life with meaning. And first and foremost, that's what this film is about. Family and love. One thing I will say for the depressing outcome of this film is that all stories need to come to an end. Specifically, Logan's story was ending one way or another, in the very real sense that Hugh Jackman is done with the character, but also the truth that an aging Wolverine was losing his healing factor. How much longer could he lug around an adamantium skeleton while his body could no longer protect him from adamantium poisoning? So in a very fitting and satisfying way, he goes out saving his daughter and passing the torch. And although he hopes she doesn't have to fight anymore, he did everything he could to make that her reality. Where Fox takes her story from here is up to them, obviously. I doubt they'll let her stay out of the fight completely, but I'd appreciate them choosing to honor Logan's sacrifice at least for a little while. Although, in the spirit of the tragedy that this film is, to continue Logan's torment even into death would be quite fitting. While I'm not a huge gore and viscera fan in general, mostly, making this movie PG-13 would have been the biggest mistake ever. The uneasy feeling you get throughout this film is completely deliberate. It's a visual way of allowing us to experience the tortured existence of Wolverine. And make no mistake, his life is torture. Even when he's not X-Menning, he's been cursed to be ripped off and beaten. Another part of marketing this film to adults is the ability to keep the plot simple and tell a character story. You don't need to constantly make sure the kids are engaged. And when you have a film that uses long scenes in between the action, especially for a comic book movie, you need to be able to rely on your actors.
That was my favorite mug.
And Logan does that. The last thing that Stephen Merchant did to impress me was Wheatley. He channels a whole different persona in this film, and man does he deliver. I've raved over Boyd Holbrook quite a bit already, but he slides right into a Western villain role so perfectly. He made me want to go rewatch Narcos to pay closer attention to him. And what's great about his performance is how jovial he is. He's not a bad guy, he's just doing what he thinks and has been told is best. I'm still heartbroken that this is Patrick Stewart's send-off to Xavier. Not because it wasn't good enough or he wasn't honored enough, I'm just sad that he only got one glimmer of hope and happiness in an otherwise miserable existence at the end. But Stewart will always be one of my favorite actors, and he reminded me why in this film. Logan's response to his death feels totally real to me as well. And it might be one of Hugh Jackman's best acted moments as Wolverine. He truly had no words. And, I mean, if there was ever someone deserving of an Oscar nod in a comic book movie, Jackman left it all on the screen in this film. I really am blown away by his performance. And given how amazing he was, makes Daphne's believability even more impressive. She had to hang with some seasoned actors who've been doing this for a long time. And she did it. Can't wait to see what she does next. But I know what you came here for. I know what you want. Logan is nothing if not the full tilt showcase of Wolverine and Friends brutality.
The new Quesalupa from Taco Bell.
Hey friends, thanks for watching. If you enjoy my videos and love positivity and optimism when it comes to movies, games, TV, and more, you need to do yourself a favor and check out my new friends at Wisecrack. I've been watching their content for years and I'm always entertained. Seriously, they're one of the few channels I get excited about when I see a new video posted. And if you want to learn more about Logan, they actually let me know they have their own video about Logan right around the corner. So subscribe to them and turn on notifications so you don't miss it. And if you're from the future, like the host of Earthling Cinema, Garrick's Wormuloid, click the link to go there now. Or check out their video uncovering the hidden meaning in Prometheus and let them know CinemaWins sent you. Me, tell them I sent you. More links to their channel in the description.